Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the Invincible Iron Man Issue 1 2022. And I actually really enjoyed this. I've been waiting to see what the new creative team would be doing. I think it's kind of cool that we're back to the Invincible Iron Man, and I really love this cover because it just showcases the armor very well. It's kind of battle scarred and everything, and it just really looks cool. And this does a nice job of kind of going over the kind of history of Tony Stark while kind of giving us a feel of the voices of the writer and also of Jerry Dugan and like kind of how he's going about this, and then also showcasing the art style, because an important part of any kind of Iron Man comic is how well the armors are showcased in the comic. Now, granted, that doesn't mean you have a face that barely looks human, and the character faces and everything worked very well in here for me, but the armors, they worked out just as nicely as you could have expected. And, of course, this is a #1, and it is $4.99, just to let you know. So, we pretty much see that, like, Tony is pretty much trying to write his own biography, his autobiography, and like talking about like the caves and everything, and how he's just trying to like get his own kind of story straight together in his head, pretty much being like, there's a lot of things you can call him. His name's Tony Stark. He's also Iron Man. We see some cool kind of old school kind of stuff because we saw the first armor and we see it kind of 80s style. And he kind of puts out some wisdom of his father, like the good times are never as good as they seem and the bad times are never as low. And he's like, he was right, look at those haircuts. And I just kind of like that kind of thing. It's like, okay, he's definitely got Tony down. Talking about how his company used to be the kind of like top dog. He was like one of the richest men. Kind of diving into why he would kind of drink out of kind of boredom, because of his creations would usually mean that he would be alone. Then going into the places that he's lived: Avengers Mansion, Malibu, Stark/Avengers Tower, and where he's at currently. Talking about his company and how he doesn't own any of these places anymore. And Iron Man still being an Avenger, telling about all the stuff that he's done, getting punched out by Wonder Man. And then another little kind of thing from his father being like, getting old is for the bums, but it sure beats the alternative, and talking about forgiving him at the dig for the unhoused. My father was a man of the future in the previous century. And then talking about how he's like been in like pop culture songs and stuff like that, and he's really good at making his own fun, and that he's kind of shifted it to he's now got more fun by like seeing what his friends are up to. Of course, Riri Williams messing around with the Mandarin's rings, talking about how he really doesn't have any money, how he's got a warehouse full of like all these dangerous weapons. It's like, all right, cool, and I don't mind this. I do like seeing how this is kind of setting him up and everything. It's taking everything that we've previously done, distilling it down and everything. Seeing that he also went to the Hellfire Gala and him talking about all that kind of stuff. Let's see. And then where he talks about how he's in his brownstone, how he's gone down to essentially like 2 armors, his Mark 70 and like this medieval kind of armor, which is kind of cool. And then talking about how his father wrote an autobiography before he died too young, as we see one of his arc reactors starts to go a little bit funny doo-dah, and then it causes a giant explosion. And you really see the kind of fallout of this. I mean, you see the building kind of blown up. We see that it shot his mask into a van. Let's see here. Talking about while people would usually wait in their golden years to do this, about 60, when you're in his kind of line of business, tomorrow may never come, as we see him pretty much under the rubble. And he's lucky to be alive. However, he overhears that one of his neighbors was dead on the scene, and the kind of fallout from that as he's in a hospital bed. And I do love that like the 3 people that are like there for him are Steve, Rhodey, and Riri. That those are like really important people to him and really important kind of relationships. And granted, I mean, it's kind of more recent for like the stories that he's been interacting with, but I do love that Steve was there for him. And they're just like, all right, if there's something wrong with his generator, I couldn't find it, Cap. He's going to be upset when he comes to. He's awake, Rhodey. He's just playing possum. As they kind of look at him, then he's like, it wasn't an accident. A moment before the explosion of the reactor, it was corrupted and then it phased back. It's impossible. And we see that, like, Rhodey and Riri looked into it and they didn't find anything. And he's like, that's disconcerting because there's someone out there smarter than us. Which, yes, you should always think of that kind of possibility. It's like, okay, something like this goes on. Yes, it's either you don't find a mistake and it's like Tony's fault, or this person is so good at doing something, it's like, okay, why did this happen? And it's like, all right. Because Rhodey then brings up if it was a mistake, or if not, the winning argument against this is going to be that it was a mistake to live in a residential area. Rhodey's like, you could bunk with me, but of course Tony is in the, no, I push my friends away. It's not safe to be in my orbit right now because he's thinking somebody's trying to come after me. Which, until it had been disproven, it's more of a kind of prudent course, as he then pretty much sees, he pays for the funeral arrangements of the woman he didn't know, goes into her, he tries to remember her name, saying that she will be avenged. And it's like, okay, definitely within Tony's wheelhouse to be like, somebody did this and killed this woman. That's not right. And then he meets with She-Hulk, which is kind of cool and definitely works because he wants it to be done. She says it's not advisable. He's pretty much paying off everybody because there's some people suing for damages that weren't even in New York City that day. One's across the river, and he's like, he's not having any. He's just like, pay them all off. And he kind of yells that at her, and she's saying that there might be criminal charges, but you know all of that. Even without the suit, you still have the best repulsors in the business, Tony. And he apologizes. She's like, no, it's refreshing to get yelled at by a client. Nobody does that anymore. I'm like, oh, okay. Interesting kind of tact there. And he couldn't find anything wrong with the reactor. Riri couldn't. He even asked Reed to do it. It just suddenly lost its stability. And he's like thinking, yeah, just like me, as he's pretty much spiraling and everything. And you really get that kind of sense that Tony... I mean, he's been through a lot in the last kind of couple of months as he's been dealing with everything going on, trying to buy up source code and everything. Just kind of dealing with his image and everything. Saying that she's got the power of attorney to settle, pay everybody off. She asks if we strike bedrock in your checking account what to do, and then he's like, well, I'll just have to invent something. And it's like, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. So we see that he then goes into problem-solving mode. So he gets pretty much this, when he says that when the chips are down, he throws himself into it. Well, what is it? It was a cave, and that's what this old Jersey City cab depot is. He retreats into his cave, his place of work, and you see that it's his kind of like work cave and everything. He's rebuilding an armor. It won't be forever, and the thing is, nobody will die because they're Tony Stark's neighbor. He makes repairs to the Mark 70, and he wants to do a test flight for it. And then he's going to try and find a proper apartment that works on a budget. He doesn't like the word budget. But we see his armor just fly onto him, which is always cool to see. And we see that it's kind of banged up, but not, like, too much. Like, then he's like, look, boss gives him the kind of stuff that he can kind of work for. He's trying to find, like, something with a sky roof. And, like, the closest one would be in Ohio. And then we see that a bogey comes after him. It's like, what the hell? And then he's thinking that, like, the new person that could be behind this could be somebody new. And he's like, hold that. As he then pretty much gets punched through into an office building. And is like, Sorry, folks. Looks like we're going back to remote working for a while. By the way, you guys did see the other guy in armor punch me into here, right? I don't know. I looked up and suddenly you totaled my office. Sigh. And then Tony's pretty much like, things aren't going well when you start to feel like Spider-Man in New York City. And it's like, he's right, though. I mean, I love Spidey and I love Iron Man, but, yeah. Yep. He then tells the workers to pretty much stay down as he then goes after the dude. And we get some pretty good action here as they start kind of like going at each other before we get that there's a helicopter in the way. Asks if they pretty much blew up his house and his neighbors, and the odds are that I will pull my punches and you'll survive. And the person's like, didn't you blow up your house? And of course the voice is modulated, no identifying it. This person says they're just the messenger. Don't concern yourself with who I am. You won't be alive much longer, as he tosses him at a helicopter, which breaks through the kind of tail rotor, and then he's got to kind of deal with that because it's going down. And he's able to kind of get at it. He pretty much has Boss pretty much put off a kind of thing to tell people to avoid the airspace around Midtown. Let me see. Yes. And then this person's like, before this is over and I'm unmasked, you'll be dead, Stark, as he's getting blasted by the dude, and he can at least take the hit. Talking about how the safest way to effect a copper rescue is get rid of the rotors, as he then uses the rotors to smack the shit out of the dude. And then he starts targeting a non-lethal round at him as he then gets like taken over by it. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Especially since it came out of pretty much like a shoulder placement. That's a cool little trick. I love it. He's like, thank you for flying Stark Air. And the person's like, we were almost killed. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and 5-star, folks. Really helps us Avengers out. I just love... Like, it at least works with Tony's kind of humor to go that kind of route, especially when it's in a kind of crazy situation like this. Talking about what he hit the dude with like, pretty much non-Newtonian gunk. And then he kind of just fucking kicks him down in the street. Talking about how this person is gonna, like, kill the woman you're tutoring. Mind telling me if she's a date ward or a date? You can never tell with you capitalist pigs. It's like, of course, referencing Riri. And first, I can't teach that woman anything, but I can teach you some manners. As he then like pretty much cracks the dude's arm, pretty much doing a clean break of the ulna and radius, and he's thinking that it's a drone, but then. Since he was talking about Spider-Man, he's like, Spidey usually gets like a tingly sense, and he's listening to that little voice can save lives. He's like, something's not right here. He's pretty much trying to push him into killing him. It's like, what are you waiting for? And he uses liquid nitrogen, freezes off the mask, rips it off, and like has his boss call EMS because we see that this dude is literally a messenger dude. He was kidnapped about 2 days ago. And he's like sedated and intubated and was clearly supposed to be his next victim. And even kind of the stuff, like the padding, is like just plastic explosives. And he pretty much gets Boss to neutralize the signals. He has seconds, but he gets the dude out of there and gets him to the hospital. And he's pretty much being like, alright, that dude wanted me to kill this dude. Like, literally kill the messenger. And then also sees that Stark Unlimited stock price keeps falling and everything. And there's little evidence with the suit having, of course, blown the fuck up. And then he really talking about how he liked the place. He's pretty much getting Chinese food and root beer, which, yeah, I'm partial to root beer myself. So he pretty much figures out this is no accident. He, like, throws some trash on the dude, calls him out for littering, and he's like, yeah, it's my shit, and I'll clean it up and sell it off tomorrow. Then goes to an AA meeting, gets a coffee with like nothing in it, and he's listening, but he didn't hear a word, and he's pretty much worried about everybody being at risk, so he ducks out a few minutes early. And the thing is, he like wakes up in a restroom in a pub and is made it look looks like he was drinking or whatnot, but we don't know because he says like bad habits are bad. I wake up in the men's restroom. It's definitely alluding that he like got drunk in there or whatnot, but it could be that somebody else drugged him or whatnot. We don't know at this point. But since it's talking about bad habits, I'm kind of leaning more towards he kind of fell off the wagon and he's like not sure what's happening to him. It's humbling when you suit up to your best and it all goes wrong and then you end up flat on your ass and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And I'm like, I get that, man, as he's like falling down on the ground. And when you're a guy like me with a disease, you got to put one foot in front of the other and keep going. And people are like, is that Tony Stark? As he's like throwing up and they're like videotaping him. He says he's not done fighting, not by a long shot. I need help. As he says that. And it's like, damn, help him. So we'll have to see kind of what happens with that as he's kind of laying in the garbage at kind of like rock bottom. So we'll see kind of what goes on with that. I did like this kind of setting it up. I can understand how people would be kind of annoyed with them kind of like recapping what was kind of going on in the previous runs, but I do think as setting a new number one with a new creative team to try and get people interested, you're like, I don't know if I was into the other previous runs. It does a good job of laying down what came before, how Tony got into pretty much his status quo and at this point, and then setting up what's coming next with him being targeted by someone that we don't know about. He's down to one suit of armor, he's down on his luck, and this is going to be him having to try and use his wits and his smarts and limited resources to try and deal with this threat and see who else can potentially help him with everything and what's kind of going on. So that's exciting to me, and I'm really interested to see how Tony goes through with this. I've liked the artwork and everything, especially in regards to the armor, and people have distinct faces and look good, like Cap, Rhodey, Riri, She-Hulk. Damn, the even enemy armor looks really kind of cool, and I'm like, alright, I hope we see kind of more of those kind of different kind of armor designs. Not that it's like super different or anything, but I'm always interested to see more kind of armored stuff popping up and whatnot, and this is an exciting kind of one for me, and I can't wait to see where they go with it. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.